The judgments that Yahweh brought upon Mitzrayim were not things that he just suddenly thought of, but what he had intended all along. What about our day? Hi, this is Barry Phillips with 10-Minute Torah, day number 3, the special readings of Pesach. We're still in Shemot, or Exodus, chapter number 12. We'll go back to a couple of verses from yesterday and add one. It says in verse 30, Pharaoh rose up in the night, he and all of his servants and all the Mitzrites. And there was a great cry in Mitzrayim, for there was not a house where there was not a dead one. Then he called for Moshe and Aaron by night and said, Arise, go out in the midst of my people, both you, the children of Israel, and go and serve Yahweh as you said. Take both your flocks and your herds as you have said, and go, then you shall bless me too. And the Mitzrites were strong on the people to hasten to send them out of the land, for they said, We are all dying. It's unimaginable, perhaps, to us to consider that in an entire nation, in one night, that the firstborn of each household, if the father was a firstborn, if his son was a firstborn, etc., there could be multiple deaths in the same house. Some rabbinical scholars suggest that there were unexpected firstborn deaths. That is, that promiscuity was so rampant in Mitzrite culture that a woman's sons, plural, may have all been firstborn. That is, each of them had different fathers and were the firstborn sons of these variety of fathers. And so Yah was exposing exactly what may have transpired unknown to the current husband. So Yah has slain the firstborn, an unimaginable crisis that's taking place in the land. But it's not as though this was a sudden thought that he had, or something that just came to him in the middle of the plagues, thinking that'll get him. Let's go back a little bit further to Exodus, or Shemot, chapter number 4. Moshe hasn't even gotten to Mitzrayim yet. He's still coming at this point from this burning bush experience and recovering from this encounter with Yah, and headed back home, or back to where he was born in Mitzrayim. And it says here, if we read in verse 22 and 23, And you shall say to Pharaoh, Thus said Yahweh, Israel is my son, my firstborn. So I say to you, Let my son go to serve me. But if you refuse to let him go, see, I am killing your son, your firstborn. The one plague out of all 10 that was prophesied before any of the plagues had ever started was the last one. So it was Yah's intention all along, throughout the entire process, to bring everything to this final moment of slaying the firstborn. He sent Moshe back to Mitzrayim to ultimately see the firstborn son status of Mitzrayim wiped out. So the judgment that Yah meted out against Mitzrayim was intentional, planned, and absolute from the beginning. Why would Yah do this? Well, let's also remember, he's just said that Israel was his son, his firstborn, and it was Pharaoh and his anti-Semitic genocide, this plan that he had enacted to slay all of the sons, the male-born sons of Israel, forcing them to be offered to the god of the Nile and consumed in the river, most likely by a crocodile. Because of this horror, because of this genocide effort, Yah says, measure for measure. As you have done, so it will be done back unto you. Which leads me to a thought here. The things that will transpire among the nations of the earth for the sins of the nations. Yah's known about these sins all along. He knew before nations were even created what would be the levels of their sinfulness and their depravities and how far that they would go away from His word. And so He has had, I believe, judgments held in store until the fullness of time, until the appropriate moment. If we go back even a little further, in the book of Bereshit or Genesis, when Yah is prophesying to Abram about how his descendants are going to go down into Mitzrayim, He says in verse 16, then in the fourth generation they shall return here. Why 4 generations? The reason is, for the crookedness of the Amorites is not yet complete. I've always marveled at that particular verse. The Amorites were a pagan people given to idolatry, a ruthless people, a Canaanitish people, dwelling in the land, worthy perhaps of some measure of judgment, even at the point that Avram is, or as we know him, Abraham, was being instructed and prophesied to here. Yet Yah says, not yet. Their sins have not reached the point where I am ready to judge them. Matter of fact, it's going to take 4 generations for this to take place. So Yah is willing to allow a people, a society, a nation to go to the full measure of what it is that they're going to engage in sinfully before He says, now you've reached the mark, now you've come to the place, and my judgment is now ready to be outpoured. We look at issues, situations, sins, depravities that fill our headlines and our communities, our schools, unfortunately. And we think, Father, how much longer? How Yah, can you put up with this? And we dare not say, publicly at least, that natural disasters in the form of tornadoes or hurricanes or incredible blizzards or any of the like, that they are in fact a measure of Yah's judgment. I remember when Hurricane Katrina hit in New Orleans, that some had suggested that it was Yah's judgment on that particular city. And the howls and the raising of furious voices against such an idea. Surely a merciful, loving God couldn't do this. I kind of think He did. What about what's going on in our particular nations now? And I know this broadcast is not just limited to the United States. There are situations that are developing, crises that are developing, and you have to wonder, the financial markets falling apart, natural disasters, food supplies, etc. Is this the hand of Yah? Is this just merely the foolishness and the squanderings of men? Yah has His ways of working through. But there will be a point in time where the sins of the nations will in fact come to the place where it will be no doubt, and every household will be affected that is not under the blood of Messiah, and there will be a mark of difference. May Yah deliver us during those days, And may it be understood among us, it's time to go home. That's what Passover is about. More tomorrow. To then, shalom.